The Bible is not yesterday's newspapers, it is today's current events. And but he had said you could use those as current events. So I'm going to preach a current event today. And what is the current event? What's the big deal going on in the country?
The FBI.
Yeah, we're going to preach on that. Yeah, we'll preach on that. What do you think the end result's going to be with that? Now, before you give me what you think, there are those that say it's a nothing burger, those that don't want anything to happen, and you know that those all end with a D, and others are saying that this is the worst scandal in the nation's history. Now, I don't know how, compared to Benedict Arnold, I don't know. But they say it's the worst scandal. When this all comes out, it'll be the worst scandal in the history of our country.
Well, Teapot Dome was pretty bad. The problem is the president died in the middle of the whole controversy. So.
Help me out on it, because I don't know anything.
1920s, Warren G. Harding, the Teapot Dome scandal.
Yeah, what was that about? I don't know.
I think it involved land out west and oil rights or mining rights or something like that.
Also had to do with the underlying theme of money?
Yeah. Yeah. And the problem is, right when it was getting, hot and juicy, so to speak, Harding died in office.
Really?
And then Cal Coolidge became president.
In the 1920s, that is a big issue. Earl is an issue. Yeah, around then. They were just hitting it and discovering it and drilling for it.
But that was a big scandal.
Well, anybody following that? It came out on Friday.
I haven't given it a thought.
And it wasn't anything that was surprising. There were those that guessed that a year before this. And tweeted about it and actually came up with the scenario, what actually is taking place. Well, what do you think the end result is? Nothing? It all goes away? You think it'll all go away?
It'd be better watching the Super Bowl.
It'd be better than watching the Super Bowl.
Well, they find an honest politician in Washington to do something about it, though.
They found an honest...
I said, when they find an honest politician.
To do something about it?
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to do something about it now.
But they're all dishonest.
Yeah, they're going to bury it under the ground.
They're going to bury it under the ground. I heard something. Now, folks, this is stuff from, this would be people from the silent era. And if I remembered it, I wanted to write it in, but I didn't write it in. It was something that Charlie Chaplin said. It would be something. This is how they thought years ago, and I did read this from a book from 400 years ago, Preacher. When you venture out in a ship, to find your way back, it does plow. It's not like in the earth where you plow in the ground. You can find your way back by just turning around and following your path. But when you do it in water, you can't find your way back. Now, I don't know how guys think like that, but they do. But he said he said something about writing it in water. Folks, they don't think like that today. Writing it in water. Listen, those Dems hoped it was written in water because they were counting on who? They were counting on who to get elected. They were counting on Hillary. She didn't. And so they had their plan B. And their plan B is kicked in. And so we're going to preach on that today. Their plan B has kicked in. And they found out it's not written in water.
Yeah, well, I got bad news for you.
Well, okay, it doesn't matter how it turns out. We already know how our story turns out, yes.
Well, until that, it's going to get kind of rough. There's a thing going on in the FBI where there's this Islamic relations thing going on in the FBI where they're not investigating terrorism. but investigating who's afraid of the big bad wolf. If you're afraid of the big bad wolf, then you can be guilty of a hate crime. The big bad wolf being Islam.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, folks
there's
are
a
gonna
lady in
come
there.
down.
There's a lady with official position in there, whose job is to.
To go hunting for people who are.
It's called Bridge. It's an acronym for Bridge, and the same thing is going on in Georgetown University, run by the Jesuits, where the end result is to get Sharia law into the country here. Oh, I heard an amen over there.
Well, I know that Gail would always say this, Gail Riplinger, if something's going on, the devil's doing that to get your eyes off of what's really going on. Now, that's a good way, that's a good way to look at things. Now, I personally don't look at it that way, but I'm not saying it isn't going down that way.
It's a magician's trick.
And the magicians, it's very deceptive, yeah. Thank God we win. All right, Tony Parish is being operated on the 9th. Anybody else have a prayer request they want to put on right now? So we have that. Anybody? No. Okay, Acts 14. So we're going to preach on that, the issue, the headline today, which is a headline of yesteryear. And we will, all right, let's begin right where we stopped in verse 17. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good and gave us rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. Bless us, our Lord, now. And the Word of God, that it would edify the believer today. In Christ's name, amen. All right, so backing up one step here is Paul's technique is to preach the topic that would be most edifying, convicting, instructive to the audience that is before him. And so he does say where he says that he preached the gospel of grace. He does say that he failed not to preach the I don't know how he says it. I know I said it once, and Don Weeks was over at my house. And it was when he was heading out to Bolivia. If anybody here knows Don Weeks, we knew him years before that. And I said, he preached the whole counsel of God. And he corrected me. He says, no, it doesn't say that. And I had to look it up. I forget what he said. It said. But the idea is that we are to preach all of it. But when we consider an audience, let's say, take the nursing home, I would avoid preaching all of it. I mean, we could preach the gospel, but you consider the group. But when you're in church, you have to preach. Like today, we're going to preach the headlines. I've never done that. If I have, I don't recall doing that. But we're going to do that, and that would be part of that. So anyway, he considers his audience because they are interested in the heavens and interested in this Greek mythology and Mercurius and Jupiter. So he uses the heavens to do that. Images and idols take the place of God, most likely made after the likeness of the giants. Now listen, Brother Welsh brought up to me that I had it backwards last week. And then I asked you to remind me if I don't bring it up. Is they didn't have telescopes back then, because they said, well, how did they see that? And I did bring that up. Now, he already had the answer, and I didn't, he should have interrupted me, but he didn't. And that is, they had Neptune, name some off, Neptune, Uranus, what did you say? Uranus, all these, whatever Greek mythological gods before that. And that was probably what this is, before the telescope and looking up in the heavens. Explain, can you explain it better than I can?
Well, sure, they didn't know, but they didn't necessarily see these planets until, what was it,
$1500s, $1400s. Yeah.
Galileo's first telescope, and it was probably nothing stronger than a good pair of binoculars would be today. But they started, noticing these other planets, and they had to name them something, and then
they named them that. And so this was, I had it back. I apologize. I had it backwards. Hey, listen, the pastor doesn't know everything. So I had it backwards. So I with that thought in mind, well, I have to say I was wrong. Now, I assume I was. Is that I had it backwards. But the likeness of these giants, Genesis 6, and I know that people debate this, but I do believe that's where Greek mythology comes from. It's based on a certain amount of facts. It's just not something that's invented. It's based on facts. All right, verse 15, backing there, saying, Sirs, why do you these things? We also are men of like passions, preach unto you, turn from these vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth. We go back to Jeremiah. Let's go back there. What isn't Jeremiah 10 where they have the Christmas tree? Or is that Jeremiah 8? Let's go to Jeremiah 10. No, it is Jeremiah 10. But it's before 10, verse 10. It's verses 1 through 9. About where we go for the Christmas tree. But look, I have verses 10 through 13. But the Lord is the true God. He is the living God, an everlasting King. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and they shall not be able to abide his indignation. Thus shall you say unto them, the gods that have not made the heavens and the earth, even they shall perish from the earth, and from under these heavens. He hath made the earth by his power, hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heavens by his discretion. All right, the point is this, is who made the heavens and the earth. If you were to go to another place, I would have to say Isaiah 40. If we go to another place, Isaiah 40, if we go there, verse 12, who hath measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, meted out the heaven with a span, comprehended the dust of the earth in a measure, weighed the mountains in scales and hills in a balance. All right, the hollow of his hand, the waters. We're not talking about, I don't believe we're talking about the waters of the earth, but the waters of the earth. And when we say meted out, how meted it out with a span? I believe that tip of your finger to a little finger to the thumb is that this is considered the span. So he's measured it with that. It's just showing how big God is, and he created all this. All right, back if you would, Acts 14 verse 15 about this creation. 2 Corinthians 2 verse 11. Lest Satan should have an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. All right. Paul uses this word, being ignorant, and we are not to be ignorant of his devices. I remember there was a fellow that preached this here. He preached this about being ignorant of his devices, and he pulled out. It was a good sermon, about a half a dozen verses about being ignorant of his devices. I jotted it down and recorded it, and it was a good sermon. There was no doubt about it. He was a missionary, and ignorant of his devices. Can missionaries mess up? Is it a minority or a majority? we hope it's a minority. Here, his whole mission was a fraud. Ended up in Florida. They had received counsel. It was a mess. He pocketed all the money. There was never a church, even though he had a prayer letter, a big write-up about how well the church is going, and all on and on and on. It turned out the whole thing was a fraud. Anyway, when I think about that, ignorant of his devices, man, he'll use anybody he can. He'll use anybody he can. And so the ignorant, his opposition, he wants to substitute the true God with other gods, and he does that. But yeah, that whole mission was a fraud. 1 Peter 5:8. What does that say? I believe it says, "It goeth about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." And I don't know if it's verse 19, I don't know if it's in reference to Acts 14 that I used. They drew him out of the city and stoned him to death. Luke 6, go to Luke 6. Luke 6, verse 26. Here's another one of Satan's devices. Woe unto you, when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets. You know, lifting people up, and then they get a spirit of pride about them. All right, verse 19, Acts 14. And there came thither certain Jews from Antioch and Iconium into town here, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Paul, threw him out of the city, supposing he had been dead. All right, they persuaded to change Paul from a god to a troublemaker. I mean, you see, who else did they do that to? They exalted him, and then within a week they crucified him. Right? They do that. From running to persecution. Paul was caught up into the third heaven. Now, this is where we assume. I'm sorry, I skipped something from Andrews. Paul was assumed to be a murderer, but we're then convinced he was a god. All right, so the reverse here happens. He goes from a god to a troublemaker, and then when he's shipwrecked and he's bitten by the viper, he goes from a troublemaker to a god. Right? You see, it just goes all over the lot. People are really weird. People are really weird. And what did Hillary call a flyover part of the country? What did she call us? What got her in trouble? And the Republicans just loved playing it.
Deplorables?
We're deplorables. Here's the problem: is when you stop thinking that you are a deplorable, folks, we're all deplorables.
I thought Democrats lived out there too.
Well, I know they do, but it's when you start lifting yourself up, thinking you're not one of the deplorables, you got problems. And we have to be reminded of that, because we think we're not. That we are sinners. We're sinners saved by grace. And she got in trouble for that. You know, people, they say things, and man, that stuff just comes back on them. And they play that stuff over and over again. And she probably wishes she never said that. But it's when we, as Christians, get in trouble is when we think that we're not deplorable, right? And so people's opinion of other people. Now the thrust of the message today is to beware of our opinion of other people. It's not that we shouldn't make a judgment. I'm not saying we should not judge people, because we can find verses to show that we should. I mean, God has given us a brain, and we are to use it to judge, but it's got to be, we've got to weigh what are the facts from fiction. And something had come up, last night. And it's fairly big. And so right away, negativity was used as a judgment. And I said, well, wait a minute, it could be that. But I named off a half a dozen other things it could be. It could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be this. I tried to think of all the other options of what would make this happen. And I said, well, let's not be rushed to judgment. You have no idea what their situation is. And so we have to be careful when we judge people. And so this is, I guess this is, the thrust of the message would be that we should be careful how we judge one another. What we assume to be true when it is not true. And we need to be, shouldn't be quick to pull the trigger. We need to hold back and wait till it is based, it should always be based upon what? Facts. Our faith is always built upon facts. What does the Bible say? What are the facts? And so on. All right. Now, in verse 20, howbeit as the disciples stood round about him, he rose up, came into the city. The next day departed with them, with Barnabas to Derbe. He runs back into the city. His change in persecution, he would leave town. Sometimes he leaves town. Let's get out of Dodge. In this case, the same day he goes back into Dodge, and then the next day leaves. Running from to running to persecution. All right. Oh, so that is the question that is drawn. Now, again, now we rush to judgment. Well, why would he do that? It is very mysterious. Why would he run from trouble, and then when trouble did come, he runs back to trouble? So a good answer to it as to why he did it, and we may say, well, he had discernment, is if we assume that when he was stoned to death, he got to go to the third heaven, which is 2 Corinthians 12. This is when it is assumed that is when he goes there. When he talks about, I knew a man, remember when he talks about that? When he talks about his, we assume it's his eyes. When he talks about his infirmity and he prays to the Lord thrice. It's the story before that, verses 1 through 6. 2 Corinthians 12, it is not expedient for me, doubtless, to glory. I will come to visions and revelations of the Lord. I knew a man in Christ about 14 years ago, whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell, God knoweth. Such a one caught up to the third heaven. And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body I cannot tell, God knoweth. How that he was caught up into paradise and heard the unspeakable words, which is not lawful for a man to utter. Of such a one will I glory. Yet of myself I will not glory, but in my infirmities. For though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool. For I will say the truth, but now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above that which he seeth me to be, or that he heareth of me. The idea is that he died, went to heaven, saw glory. God said, it's not time, you're going back. And because of that experience, he was no longer afraid to die. Let's go right back into town. And now, is that the reason? We don't know. But it's a good assumption. Now, is it, I mean, you don't base your salvation on that. You base your salvation on the blood of Jesus. But it's a pretty good guess. It's a pretty good guess as to what had occurred, or I can't think of any other logical thing other than discerning of spirits. 1 John chapter 4, verse 1. He's given us the discernment of spirits. Now, in all, you hear these stories. They make movies about this. Children dying, people having near-death experiences. I don't discount them, but I don't advocate them. I don't know. Didn't happen to me. I had an employee once. He would he had a cousin. It was I thought he said it was his girlfriend in New York, and he would say he would meet her halfway between New York and here every night. In out-of-body experience. I mean, we've had some weird employees, over the years, and he would say that, and I would just listen, and I personally thought he was on drugs. At least that's what I thought. When I was on the radio with those minute tracks, 60-second tracks, he came to come see me. I hadn't seen or talked to him in 30 years. And he said, I knew you'd get saved. Yeah, because he told me he was witnessing to me. This would be 30, 35 years ago, a long time ago. And he said, I just knew I had to come see you. But that was the guy that told me he had these, I didn't, we didn't talk about that. He just was happy to hear me on the radio. And he made a special trip, I think from Strongsville, to come out here to see me. And he said, I heard that, your voice. He said, I can't believe it. And he said, I had to come out here to see you. But he did. But he would say those kind of things. It was kind of weird. He would perch up on a bench like a bird. And it was the last man that my father hired. After that, I was in charge of all hiring. And I think my dad never came in again after that. That was the last guy he ever hired over at the plant. Anyway, he goes from running from persecution to running to persecution. And a good reason could have been that he went to the third heaven. Now, did it happen? Well, obviously it happened here in 2 Corinthians. Obviously it happened there. And Jesus, for him, it happened all the time, who is in heaven and on earth. He says that when he's witnessing to Nicodemus, that Jesus says to him, some claim, well, he's not talking directly to Nicodemus at that point in John 3. But he's in both, this is just before John 3:16. He's in both places at the same time, because he's omnipresent. All right, it was Philippians 1:24. Philippians 1:24, he was not afraid to die. For me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. He knew that. Verse 24 of Philippians 1, nevertheless, to abide in the flesh is more needful for you, for him to abide here. So to discount, folks, ever your presence on this earth, that would be, I would call that one of the devil's devices to discourage you, saying, well, what good am I? You have no idea your influence upon others. It's more needful for me to abide here. For Paul, he could openly state that. And God doesn't reveal everything to us, just like he didn't reveal everything to Job. And to discount your very presence here as being unneedful is wrong. You as a Christian, you are needed. And we have to realize that, understand that, accept that our presence is very needful for some reason. For some reason, it is very, very needful. All right, Acts 14, verses 21 through 26. We have what do I have here? The path. I didn't make a. Or this is part of a. This is part of a. Is this part of an outline I made? It is. Yeah, you know what? I'm going through my notes. Yeah, the return. I'm goofed up here. Okay, yeah. The reach, the return, and the report. Is that the one you're... Yes, okay. The return, the reach, how far he went, Hey, figure how far he went. Now, back in those days, was that a journey? To me, that's a journey even today. How would you go there today? You could fly there. You could go by boat. I would say, Europe, they do trains. Don't they do trains in Europe?
Yeah, Euro.
Yeah, it's a little tougher in this area. But there's probably trains that could take you the whole way. Because you got a lot of water there. But however they travel, it can be done. But even that, it's more than a day's ride. Unless you're going by plane. And so on. So he returns the same path that he well, not necessarily the exact same path, but the return is given verses 21 through 26, and through there, and this is how it goes: Antioch, Seleucia. Wait a minute. Okay, Seleucia, Salamis, Paphos, Perga, and then the return. This path: Antioch, Pisidia, Iconium, Lystra, Derbe, Lystra. However, it comes back, but it ends up back at Antioch. And it gives specifically the cities of which he comes. Now, what do they call that hamburger? Hamburger helper. What is hamburger helper?
It's spices and usually some sort of
And what do you do? Mix that in the hamburger? I'm not a cook. You add it to the meat?
After you cook the meat, you add that and cook it longer.
Oh, it
Noodles
does.
and
It's a
rigatoni.
filler.
Yeah.
It's a filler. That's what I thought it was. So hamburger helper is to make the meat go a little farther. And
Yeah.
a little flavor. Makes the meat go farther, and it waters down the soup. Folks, nothing in God's Word is a filler. I don't believe that. There's a reason for that there. Now, to say that we don't know the reason, it wasn't revealed to me, and I haven't read the reason. But it's not just some, it's not a filler. It's like, let's use up some space here. When you were in English class and you have to write a composition, what's one of the requirements of a composition? It has to be so many, words? Type double spaced, and you want to stretch this out, and then you try to create filler. Folks, God's not trying to create any filler. So there is a reason for this, and it's not some bizarre reason. There could be a secondary reason or some spiritual reason, but there's a reason for it. It's just not hamburger helper. It's not some filler. The return. All right, the work of the missionary. If we were to look at it, verses 21 through 23, he is to preach the gospel. When they had preached the gospel to that city, and now the 4 gospels, it is the gospel of grace, Acts chapter 20. We don't have to go there. And he is and had taught many. I think about it for myself personally over the years. The boys have recently bought a house here in Bedford. I don't know who bought. Tammy bought Mrs. Stittak's house. And then her son, Mrs. Stittak, came to church here. And she had a dog, Coco. And she had a son who lived right up here, second house off of on Wood Road. And he came first, didn't he? Then she. He came first, and she came. And she came diligently every week. And then, lo and behold, by chance, the boys bought his house. They tore the house down next to it, but Brother Wayne had died. She died, the mother died, he finally died. He had a heart condition. He finally died. They bought the house, and why did I say that?
Because you wanted.
Teach many. I didn't teach her, but I taught him, and I go over the years of all the people that have died, and I sometimes muse through this catalog in my own head. And I think about, man, if I start really totaling up everybody, and I'll disciple anybody. It doesn't matter to me how long you've been saved. If you want to get discipled, I'll come to your house. You come to my house, we'll disciple you one-on-one. I do that. But when I start totaling it up, it is quite a few people over the years that have made it through, got the certificate. And I don't necessarily want to do it in a group setting like this. Now, we've done the discipling in a group setting. We did it on a Wednesday night. And we went through the whole discipling thing. Didn't we do it on a Wednesday night? I think we did that. But I still do individuals. We still do that. But teach many. So that's the work of the missionary. Preaching the gospel, teaching many. And when you teach, especially somebody that just gets saved, it's line by line, here a little, there a little bit at a time, and until they can handle, stronger meat. And adults are pretty quick. I mean, they pick this stuff up fast. All right, to confirm the souls of the disciples. Verse 22, confirming the souls of the disciples. That would be to strengthen them, to encourage them. You're on the right path. Exhorting them to continue in the faith. In other words, to endure suffering, endurance of suffering here. Through much tribulation, enter into. This is a good one. We must through much tribulation enter in the kingdom of God. Now I go there, and that's a good one to memorize. Jesus, who went about doing good. Anybody? That I preached a message on that. Who went about doing good? That's Acts 10:38. This one here, Acts 14:22. Through much tribulation, is I go there to show the difference between the great tribulation and the tribulation that you and I are going through. For those that want to go through the tribulation, that's not one and the same thing. And I would then go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 10 also, going through certain verses to show that there's a difference in what we go through. Exhorting them that you will suffer. Right? If you're a Christian, you're going to suffer for it in one way or another. And ordaining them elders. And when they had ordained them elders in every church, they had prayed with fasting, they commended them to the Lord on whom they believed. All right. In other words, the organization, a church organization, folks, this needs to be organized. Now, listen, we have these breakaway groups. We do have these breakaway groups, and so we homeschooling, home cooking. Give me some other home things. Homeschooling. Yeah, that was where we want to end up. Homeschooling, home cooking. Huh?
Work, home business.
Oh, a home business. And when we homeschooled, now we haven't done it lately, we would have a home business. Yes.
Home birth.
Oh, home birth. I mean, you made me into that. By the way, who was the first president ever to not be home birth? I was going to bring that up for the sermon, but why bring it up then? We'll bring it up right now. Anybody know the first president not to be born at home? I think this is a fact.
Thomas Jefferson.
No. You're right. It's President Clinton. All other presidents before him were born at home someplace else. They were not born in a hospital. President Clinton was the first president to be born in a hospital. Listen, Richard Nixon's mother cleaned out bedpans. All right. The Bushes, were they rich? Daddy owned oil. Right? They were rich. Nixon was dirt poor. Gerald Ford, I consider him a blue blood, a country club. These are the Republicans, the kind of Republicans that they're never Trumpers, and they're okay with losing. And I always say that this is what's wrong with Washington. They don't want their apple cart messed up because they're all on the dole. And I don't mean Senator Dole. All right? And what Andrew Jackson was born where? In a log cabin. I think he's the last one to be born in a log cabin, unless Lincoln was.
Lincoln was born in the cabin.
Well, he was born, and I think Andrew Jackson is the last president to have literally fought Indians.
I used to live in a log cabin.
You live in a log. I'm pretty sure. I read something about Andrew Jackson that indicates that he's the last. I know he's way back.
Technically, yeah.
He's
Even
way
though
back
Lincoln
there.
was a captain in the Army during the Black Hawk War, the Illinois militia, but he never fought.
But what we think about presidents and what really factually is, when we really know their past, home birth, home education, and we can't say homeschooling. You got groups that have to say home education. I mean, please. Home education, home cooking, those are three biggies. And then where did you go? Home church. Now we have breakaways. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to break away. The whole club is going. All these homers. And we're going to have home church. We're going to have home church. And so home church, what do you do on a Sunday at the house with all these people? You're going to end up doing what? You're going to have a meal. You're going to have the home cooking. You're going to have, so whoever the matron of the home is, she's going to have the meal, and you'll probably have other women bring the dinner too. But who does the preaching? The husband, the father, ends up doing the Sunday school and the preaching. And so you alternate it like Amish people. Why do Amish people go from house to house? There's a reason. It's a tradition, but there is actually a physical reason. They cannot be traced. Now today, GPS, forget it. They know where they are. So it was 400 years ago, is then the sheriff of Nottingham can't find you. And so they went from, and the way that you can find where the preaching is going on, there is a way to know where the next house is going to be preached at. That's where all the benches are. Because they haul them from one house to the next house. But they do that only out of tradition. But they have an elder that does the preaching, goes to these houses. It's not dictated by the house itself. There's an elder that does the circuit. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But in this home education group is whoever is the patron of the house, they do the preaching and the teaching. Folks, in the end, that's mass confusion. It's just going to end up being mass confusion, and everybody's got to have their 2 cents. It's just mass confusion. We've been invited to groups. We've been invited where they shout out, stand up, quote verses. It's just mass confusion. Mass confusion. Verse 27, and we will end here. And that ends chapter 15, and I'm going to have a very busy week. Okay, so I don't have anything for you yet. All right. Our last R word in that three-pointer is the report. And I do get missionary letters. I just threw Dan Bennett's in Tammy's. She issues these and makes Xeroxes, and he gives a report. He's been on the field a while, hasn't he? He is missionary to San Pablo or Paulo? What's in Brazil there?
Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo.
It is a big place. That's like multi-millions of people there. And he is missionary, pronounce it again.
Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo?
Yeah.
And when I think of Brazil, I think of, what do we normally think of?
The jungle.
Rio? Which is the bigger city?
I think Rio's the biggest.
Is the biggest.
Sao Paulo would be like Chicago.
Okay, it's big. Mexico City, I thought there was like 13 million people there, or 30 million, and I think I'm way off on that. Mexico City's another enormous place.
Yeah.
Okay, but they open the door is the opportunity to preach the gospel, the report. And when they were coming and they gathered the church together, they rehearsed all that God had done with them. how he had opened the door of faith unto the Gentiles, which was a big issue, because they're making reports and there's going to be Jews there. And there they abode long time with the disciples. And so this is now going, notice in verse 2 of chapter 15, and therefore Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and disputation with them. All right, so they rehearse it before, I think this is going to come up, is they rehearse it before a small group first. We all get on board so there's not open rebellion and just a disruption in the church. That they get enough people on board with we'll say the pillars of the church to debate, to agree, to understand it, that the Gentiles are coming on board too. And so on. Acts 16:19 is our last verse. And when her master saw an open door. The topic here is the open door and the opportunity to preach the gospel. Verse 9. And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia and prayed him, saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." All right, so he had leading there. There was leading to go there. Now we always say that he was withheld from going west to east, but permitted to go from the east to the west. And that seems to be dictating the blessings of the direction of the gospel. It starts at Antioch, goes north and east. It goes west into Europe, from Europe to America. And it seems now to be flowing from America west to China, and so on. It goes in that kind of a flow. How do they send off the capsules? I often wonder about this. You know, I'd like to talk to a NASA guy. How do they send those suckers up? East to west or west to east? When they launch from Canaveral,
They go towards Africa.
well, they go up and they orbit the Earth from west to east is how they go. They never go east to west. I often wondered if we could run an experiment to show whether or not the Earth is really orbiting. And then when we have these satellites that are up there, they appear motionless.
Well, they're in geosynchronous.
I know. And so when we do that, we wonder, is the Earth really turning or not? And those questions come up with geocentrists and scientists, and they do debate these things of what is actually going on. I read where NASA calculates everything as the Earth is supposed to be motionless. And I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, that's another topic. But when there's an open door to preach, what should you do when the barn door opens? Go through. Take advantage of that. With open door, somebody has a question, like when the girl said, "I love the world." Well, it opened the door for me to blurt out and say, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him." I have not seen her since. And she's always there. And it's my favorite teller. Yeah, and it goes and it heads out of there.
I'll take a break.
Yeah, I don't know. And she's real quick and intelligent and gets the job done right away. Anyway, let's quit here. Father, bless now, preach to the follow in Christ's name. Amen.